What's going on, everybody? I am Domovex, Near Mint Condition Project Manager and Comic Releases Assistant Editor, and I've got my co-host Drew in again today for another episode of Two California Filipinos, and today we talk about more machinations for the X-Men, didn't we?
Yeah, the episodes 4 through 7 of X-Men 97, and they are amazing, and what they build to, I'm sure will be amazing, and we get into all that. And there, because in these episodes there's lots of side stories, but obviously the main story progresses in a huge way. So if you all haven't watched those episodes yet, then you would definitely want to pause this, go watch episodes 4 through 7, because there will be spoilers, and these are episodes best experienced without the spoilers, in my opinion.
They are. I talk about a story somewhere in this episode where a friend of mine, when I sent them something, they sent something back to me, and I go in depth into what that actually is. But these episodes were a lot of fun, and there's a whole lot more to talk about, so let's not even waste any more time and get right into it.
Yep, let's do it.
Man, we've got 4 episodes to talk about today, and that, as we aforementioned earlier in the month, we were planning on covering these in 3-part quantities, just because it just made sense. More along so with the film, or the TV show, I should say, versus everything else. So we got the plot progression continuing. We got some more drama now with the team. We have some interpersonal relationships that will forever be changed because of character decisions and decisions that the writers made with each characters, and a couple of outsiders affecting the plot as well, which I found super interesting and just incredibly insane stuff. I will say, like, the twists and turns and the ride is definitely not what I was expecting, but it's been super fun.
Yeah, it caught me off guard, especially some of the twists that we'll probably get to a little bit later when we start talking more about like the plot elements that happen. But yeah, I mean, just starting off in episode 4, I like the artistic sort of like vision that they have, because you don't really see this. I mean, you maybe see this with some of the Saturday morning style cartoons, but the way they split episode 4 into like 2 parts, you know what I mean? They're kind of 2 mini episodes, and I thought that was really cool because when you only have 10 episodes in a season, you don't have enough time to spend like one episode on only, these 2 sort of side characters or something like that. And so I thought that was really cool. And that way it doesn't take away from feeling like it's the X-Men, it doesn't, even though like these episodes focus on Jubilee and then Sunspot and then Storm and, what's that guy's name? Forge, respectively, right? In the episode 4, even though it focuses on them, it doesn't feel like, man, we're losing out on like what people are doing back with like the whole X-Men gang. And so I thought that was really cool. There's I think the best way to like summarize it is, yeah, the plot elements are cool, but I do find myself getting really invested in the characters. I think the characters are very well written. And I think that it's aged. I mean, because obviously it's supposed to be reflective of the old 90s X-Men. And I mean, we talked about this last week, but the way they've kind of modernized it while still holding true to what the old X-Men feels like is phenomenal. And the sort of mature aspect of it, I think, is also very well done.
No, for sure. I mean, you could see it in the animation as well, again, where we talked about this last week, where it's the perfect blend of nostalgia kicked in with modern elements so that people who might not be attuned to what it looked like back in the days can familiarize themselves with the same touch and feel, I think, as we've been exposed to and given in these 7 episodes now. And you sort of see it too with the whole entire Mojo world. I've never been one of those people who've stuck up for Mojo just like as a villain, but he's like, he's perfect in that exemplary role where he's hovering and just trying to get more of his day. It's also like a nice breather even if and all through the big plot where we get good character development for Jubilee and Sunspot and get to see like how they act as characters and individuals and also as teammates. So it's nice to see that we occasionally get these breathers, because we can't just have every single episode being, this is like a big world threat, this is what's happening next. Like, as much as I would love to see that, it's moments like these where you get to, as a writer, shine, because you get to spotlight some of the like the slice of life elements that I don't think some people get enough of in superhero genre media and films.
Yeah, and the Mojo villain caught me off guard. I was like, what the hell is this guy? Like, he looks like a freak, which they obviously draw him like that intentionally. But I was like, this is so, like, it's like, I like the plot, but I was just like, man, this guy is weird. I just wasn't using, I just looked him up right now, and it turns out, I think when was his first appearance? 1985? Is he in the original X-Men animated series?
I remember him being in like 1 or 2 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, just for like the funsies of, hey guys, we need a fourth world breaker, because that's technically what he is, if you want to call him that. Mm-hmm. He's got his own little pocket of the Marvel universe called the Mojo world, where he can streamline and pick in whatever he wants to, because that is his mutant power. It's super. He's in doses. He can be a lot of fun. If I were to like write an X-Men comic or an X-Men ancillary comic, I would definitely not use him as like the main villain for an arc. But if you're telling me like, hey, let me like write some weird fun adventure, like use him, because he breaks the mold, not only literally, but you as an animator can also use different styles to visualize what you're looking at on screen, and he's like one of the best examples of that in X-Men lore.
Yeah, that makes sense. I liked the character development that Jubilee and Sunspot go through in this episode. I thought it was, and there's like interesting things like, oh, there's an extra life over there, and it's just kind of like little fun moments like that I thought were cool. But yeah, I mean, there was one part in it where I was like, oh man, come on, don't get into like this anti-video game like sort of like conversation, because like, Jubilee, you're 18, you gotta like grow up or whatever the heck, the old beta version of Jubilee is saying. I forget what she's saying, the exact lines. She says, yeah, like video games are, silly or whatever, but you're also forgetting that they're cool as heck. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, that is it. Like, video games largely are, they're just something people do as a hobby, to kill time or have fun with friends or whatever. And so, like, while video games probably don't do a lot of like good for people, or they don't like progress people's lives in a lot of ways besides like spending time with your friends, if it's that kind of time, while it doesn't do that, like video game, like, you have to acknowledge that video games are just straight up fun. Like, you find a video game you like, and I mean, for me personally, like, there are times where I could just lose myself in a video game for hours and hours.
That's literally what I've been doing for the past week. A friend of mine sent me 2 3DS Pokemon games, because I told him, like, man, I got some of these Pokemon plushies, but I like miss my childhood. And the backstory with that is that when I moved houses, to the most recent one, I lost most of my DS games, including all of my Pokemon games. So I'm like, man, that's like hours of my childhood and my teenagehood like completely thrown out the window. So I told him about that. He's like, hey, I got some extra 3DS games. I'll send them your way, which, like, big shout out to you, man. I mean, completely insane.
That's sick.
Some of them are very much out of my own pocket. Like, some of them like go for $200 plus. Like, people want these.
Oh yeah,
because it's Pokemon. But I literally, like, even on my free time, I'm like, man, the only thing I want to do is turn on my 3DS and play the heck out of these Pokemon games. I'm like, man, I just want to catch it. Like, I want to finish catching all the Pokemon on the different islands or wherever I'm at. And I mean, that's like the exact same feeling that I'm getting in this episode. It's like these two are clearly like trying to enjoy themselves while also not trying to die. But I think that's like the whole point of it. Like, you're just here sometimes like life is about having fun in certain moments. It's not. I don't think it's necessarily fair to like see it as like maybe an end all be all, but I mean that is a primary function of video games. It is for leisure and entertainment, and I'm glad that that episode very much had that weight to it.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly how I felt. Like, it's like, yeah, it is. And you know what? It's her 18th birthday. Like, she should be able to have fun. She should be able to do whatever she wants, right? Like actually, like, it's her birthday. Let her have fun. And, you know, I think in the beginning, I think it's Magneto that's being a, you know, a jerk or whatever. But yeah, like, I think she wanted to go to the arcade. Is that what she wanted? Yeah, she wanted to go to the arcade. Yeah, and Magneto was like, hell no, which is the implication, because I don't think we actually see him. But, man, Magneto at an arcade, I imagine you just get free games the whole time. I imagine you don't have to pay at all.
get the money somehow via the whatever his powers do. Like, oh, like, come on.
Exactly.
Like free times on the Pac-Man and everything else that you can think of. Or, like, shoot as many hoops as you want to or something.
I wonder how they would react to like a Marvel versus Capcom game. Like, what would they see in that? You know,
I think you know it's funny though, because like I remember someone asking this writer, "Hey, like when you were a kid, like who did you pick in the Marvel versus Capcom or those type of like Street Fighter games?" And the guy said, like, "I don't know who doesn't pick Wolverine, but if you don't pick Wolverine, you're like your opinion's invalid or something." It's like, of course you pick Wolverine. But it's like, maybe I think they'd be surprised, like maybe they find like the stats or something like hidden behind like a back wall where like the game tracks it or something. Beast like maybe hacks in. He's like, no one ever uses me.
That's funny.
Or something. I don't know. But no, I really appreciated that they brought a lot of sense and levity back to Mojo World, just because it builds the universe up. Like, if this was your first X-Men cartoon, you didn't watch the 92 animated series, it gives another flesh of the world that they can obviously go back to at any given point. Maybe Mojo needs something, or maybe his world's under attack, or something like that. It leaves the door open for more storytelling possibilities. There were some cameos in there, like Spiral was in there, and some other X-Men characters. That were pretty cool to see too. So even if in all that, like I'm glad Jubilee had her 18th birthday, and that she's having fun, for whatever purposes that she believes is having fun.
Yeah. I think because that part was only half the episode, so the second half is Storm and Forge, and I'm obviously not as familiar with the comics as you. Do Storm and Forge do they know each other very well before this episode, or is is it implied that their relationship has developed off screen and they're kind of, because it seems very much like they're like lovers or something?
Yeah, man, they've had a weird romantic connection with each other for a good portion of the 90s. The last right, it's crazy because like the breakup that they have is actually kind of at least in the comics, it's like
reality TV.
Yeah, it's like it is. Well, yeah, I mean, the X-Men are a soap opera. Of course, it's reality TV, but it kills your soul. It's like, oh man, what happened to the both of these? But it's clear that they do have a history with each other. Forge wants to help Storm out because she lost her powers, and it's now part of one of the central plot elements, because you can't help but feel like she wants to be out there helping her brothers and sisters and siblings all on the team, and she can't because she just turned normal like you and I do.
Yeah, I thought that they tackled the whole I don't know, I thought this episode is really cool. It teaches us a lot about Storm, and I mean Forge too, but mostly Storm, obviously. Like, I thought that it was cool that like the adversary, right? Like the antagonist of this episode was really honestly kind of scary. Like, if I was a little kid watching that, I'd be like, man, that owl is freaky. And owls are already kind of weird, man. Owls are weird as hell. Like, they look cute sometimes, like real owls, but like you see some pictures of owls and you're like, dude, that looks like some sort of like demon thing. And so I think it works really well for like this, that for the adversary, which I guess is supposed to be kind of like a demon thing.
Yep.
But I like so I forget because the episodes are blurring for me right now. But
because they continue this in episode 6, because this is like
okay,
the second half.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, then I will wait to hold off on that. But I do remember, like the demon thing, obviously biting Forge and kind of what seemed to be like poisoning him or something like that. And I'm like, man, like, is this so is it? But then the demon kind of gets banished, and then I don't know. It's a demon, you know. It doesn't have to follow like regular rules. But I thought it was fun exploring Storm's like, you know, personal relationship with herself and with Forge. Storm was a character that like I wasn't super interested in as a kid, and maybe I mentioned this in the last episode, but man, is she super cool as like powers wise, but also just as like a character. I think she's really really cool.
No, for sure. It's I think it like sometimes levity is needed, especially in moments like that. And I'm glad that they found the time to not only like where we learn more about Storm, but also build her character in times of strife, and which that in itself is an X-Men pun that if I think where they're going with this whole show in season 2 goes, I'll talk about that later though. But yeah, just like in times of need and all of that other stuff, you really get to see what Storm is like as a character, how she handles with adversity, and how she handles being like with herself amongst other people. She's super strong-willed, and I think that's just why I like her as a character. It's all like her motivation and just the wanting of, I gotta succeed no matter, you know, whatever expectation, you know, you're set into. It's something that I've always admired, even like as a even like if you're a neutral on Aurora, like it's something that you have to appreciate about Aurora Monroe as a character.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that was her name when they called her like Aurora. I was like, what? I had to look it up. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was cool. That's really all I got for that one.
Because yeah, it was like, it's like, oh, we got a demon here. It's like some trials and testing. You get to see how like the two work together as a team. I think, you know, it's funny. It's and interesting because I think the show and the showrunners know like we're gonna have like the whole thing between Jean and Scott as like the central thing of it, which is why we don't necessarily have an episode geared towards them, right? Like as a couple, like going through these things, it's just intertwined with the X-Men mix. So having Storm and Forge, and then Jubilee and Sunspot being paired together separately, I think works with what the show is going for, and also fits in with the whole entire like greater narrative with what mutant persecution and hatred looks like, and how these characters are sort of handling it through separate quantities, and getting to see them split up like this. I don't know. I think it's a nice storytelling device.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I completely agree. I was like, I don't know, like, I don't know. There's no weak episodes, you know, and even episodes where you're like, oh man, I want to find out what happens to, you know, Jean and Scott or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, well, I can wait because this story in front of me is at least very interesting.
Right. And speaking of those two, I mean, we get a bit fledged in with a lot of that and some others in episode 5, which for a lot of people was oh my goodness, you want to talk about breaking down the hammer and lifting this up with all of the different curveballs. Like this episode had it. You had this Gene Scott drama too, right? You also have the whole entire gala with the explosions. Oh my goodness. I remember when this was talked about, like my friend legitimately told me, like it was Wednesday morning, he texted me, Dom, do not go on the internet or else you will actually die. And then I got a part spoiled for me, like jokingly, because I sent him a pic or a gif of a Pokemon crying, and then he on the bottom was like, this is what Rogue is doing, episode 6 and 7 of the show, and I was like, no.
Man, I hate spoilers, dude. I hate them, man. Some people, well, I mean, so at least that was maybe an accident. I don't know.
No. He knew he knew that I would enjoy like that comment. I was like, okay,
yeah,
that's fair enough, I guess. But yeah.
I mean, Rogue doubly crying in that
Oh
episode.
my goodness. So yeah, for all those people who don't know, the Sentinels display a very prominent attack on a mutant-led gala. Um,
On the mutant island.
on the mutant island of Genosha. And oh my goodness. In the comics, Genosha was the site of 16 million mutants being killed, which is later referenced by
Damn.
yeah, man. There's a lot of things that happen on that island. And
Like an
this
actual genocide.
an
That's
actual
crazy.
mutant genocide by the Sentinels, same Sentinels that yeah, man. It's insane. Then you got Magneto trying to save everyone. You have Remy's sort of last-willed fight, which I thought was super cool. And I feel bad. You know what? The people who are the most mad were the people who like Gambit. For all the fans of like characters in the 90s, and then all the people who liked Gambit and Rogue just like as a couple. I think if you want to talk about like top X-Men ships, like they're top 3 at minimum. Like people love those two. But yeah, a lot of people were not happy with the storytelling decision, but I was really happy with the way that he went out, just sort of like in this heroic last hurrah. And yeah, it's just like just draws a card. I was like, man, I don't think like my heart got rubbed there, man. Like you're feeling, you're like, what adventures are you gonna see from Remy in this new X-Men show? And the next thing you know, that guy is gone off the drop, and it's absolutely insane.
I mean the Magneto bit too though, because so spoiler alert, I think in episode 7 we find out that Magneto is still alive. But it's heavily hinted at that Magneto is killed by the giant Sentinel thing. And then obviously like Rogue gets upset, and then Gambit's like, I gotta handle this. Like Rogue can't handle this, and yeah, Gambit goes out like a boss, dude. Like it's kind of cool when you get to see characters push themselves like that. Obviously, he dies in the process, but like it's kind of cool when you get to see someone who just usually just does something like throw cards, or he can charge Wolverine's claws or something like that, to the scale that we saw him go out with. I thought that was so sick. But also like, I don't know, like the fight scene is cool and stuff like that, but I also thought this was like a really emotional episode.
Yep.
Because this is like, and then Cable shows up too. And I don't know, it was there was a lot of cool stuff. Man, what episode? I'm forgetting. There's one episode where there's a flashback between Scott and Jean, or maybe it's Scott and what's her name? The clone.
Madeline.
Yeah, maybe it's Scott and Madeline, or I forget who it is, or maybe it's before she was even cloned, so they both have the memory. I literally don't know. But there's a scene where Jean like suppresses Scott's power so that she can actually see his eyes. And that was really cool, because then when she sees Cable, she's like, those eyes, like she recognizes the eyes. And I was like, oh, that's so sick, man. Like what a cool setup. I thought that was such a cool setup.
I think that was in episode 7.
Yeah.
That was in episode 7 that happened.
Oh, okay. I'm jumping ahead. But anyways, but we saw Cable in this episode.
You did get to see a little bit of, yes, Mr. Nathan Summers, and him getting to clash a lot. And I love that they chose this for him too. Just in the case of the whole the whole theme of family. I think the theme of family is completely present in every single episode, and obviously they hammer it home with some characters more than others. Like we'll get to Nightcrawler in a second, because he shows up too, and I love me some good old Kurt Wagner. But I love that they chose the whole theme of family, especially for the fact of you have this X-Men team, right, who don't have Professor X there, and who clearly need a direction in a team that doesn't figure like they have it. And having the whole thing with Scott not knowing that Jean wasn't actually alive and that he still like he has feelings for someone who isn't really the one that he loves the most. But on top of that too, like we get the reveal in episode 5, like he's still trying to figure out like if Madeline is doing okay, and Jean's like, I'm back, and you're still like pining over whoever this person is. And even then too, like we get closure along with the whole Wolverine and Jean thing, where he's just like, yeah, I mean, I like you. You're like, we're somewhat like physically attracted, right? But the bond's not there, which is why we can't be together. It's stuff like that where I go, this is exactly like what I sign up for when you're talking about the X-Men soap opera. It's, yeah, of course, it's like, cool, it's the will they, won't they, but all the ramifications and everything speaking from it, I think just makes the whole team and the whole reason why I watch them like stronger as I think they can be.
Yeah, another thing that, because I don't mean to go back, but I'm pretty sure it's the 4th episode where Roberto's like family, he like comes out as a mutant, and his mom is like very accepting, but they're like, oh, but we can't tell everyone because the shareholders will get upset or something. So yeah, like just going back to I just wanted to reiterate and kind of piggyback on the theme of family. I thought that was really cool too. But the thing that sticks out to me a lot, besides the the characters, the animation, the fighting, all that stuff, is like the dialogue. There's so much of the dialogue in the whole series it's almost poetic, the way that they speak to each other. And I thought that, I mean, I don't know, like there's so many things that stick out to me, and I'm like, man, that'd be a cool quote right there. Because I'm like, this is like the way they talk is really cool, but not in like a corny, oh, this is obviously a quotable moment kind of way. It never feels corny, even if it's kind of like campy, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it, but it always feels like it fits.
It's never awkward. I can't like think of a scene where two people are talking and I'm like, this doesn't feel like someone wouldn't say this or something like that of the sort. It feels like the moment these two characters are talking to each other just makes sense with the whole scene that they're in, and their interactions never feel forced. It always feels like, man, like there's a reason to why these two characters are talking to each other and the whole reasons for it. Like I remember, like even Wolverine, like, yeah, Wolverine is like rough and he gets to the point, but he never feels off. It's like, okay, this is definitely something that Wolverine would say. And I love that, like, it's like, for example, like with him, it's super like simple to the point. Whereas with someone like Beast, it's like he's trying to elegantly channel whatever thoughts he has on the situation in a much more balanced manner than Wolverine does. And I like that everyone has their own distinct voice so that you can separate, especially with a team that has so many different characters on it that you have to focus on. I like that you can tell that everyone is distinct from each other in that regard.
Yeah, and even though it's a animated series, they feel real. They don't, the characters are obviously consistent and consistently written, and their actions and what they say makes sense, but they feel real. And I just want to take a moment to contrast this with something I complained about in the first episode we did with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where it was like 15 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, dude, this would never happen in any world where you're at someone's wedding and all of a sudden you bring up your past relationship with the bride to the bride. It's like, dude, that wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? But you don't get that stuff in X-Men. Even when it's Logan and Jean talking, and they kiss very briefly, and then like Logan's like, this is never gonna work out. It's Jean and Scott, not Jean and Logan, or whatever he says, and those are just the rules or whatever. And then he walks away. I'm like, yeah, that seems realistic for like Wolverine to do. And the kiss from Jean doesn't seem out of character because she's confused as hell, because like she was like cloned and someone was living in her place for who knows how long, and so I don't know, I think that like even that makes sense, right? Like that, to me, that makes way more sense and is way more realistic in like even in this fantasy world, than what we saw in a live action film with real people. And it's a testament to the writers of X-Men 97. And also, I want to use it to contrast and highlight how bad some dialogue is in even live action films that, I mean, have a much higher budget, man. Like, they have the money to hire better writers. Like this, there's no excuse, but it makes me appreciate X-Men 97 even more.
No, for sure. It's stuff like that too. Like, yeah, you talk about the Jean Grey and the Logan moment between those two, and again, like, not only getting closure there, but just to see, like, yeah, how these two react if we're ever going to see, like, yeah, we obviously need some drama, and we need to see, like, okay, like, if you don't know what you're doing, and this person says, like, you give, like, these are the memories I've given you, like, what will you do at that point? It's like, oh, like, here's an admission from a guy that I was somewhat attracted to. My husband is doing God knows what behind my back, and she
with my clone.
Right, exactly. She figures that out. But I appreciate that, like, we're moving on from that standpoint. In it so much the fact that, like, yes, obviously, like, I ship Scott and Jean together, but also, like, getting to see, like, the end of a chapter between two people and starting off something new, where, like, oh, like, what are we gonna do with Logan now, or even in as much of what's next for like, his regular life, like, what's Logan gonna continue on doing, etc. So it's moments like that where it humanizes the characters, obviously, but I mean, it builds on the drama, it builds on, like, the whole will they, won't they, and figure. I mean, like, Jean and Scott, like, get stronger along as the series rolls on. We see that in episode 6 and 7. But to have, again, like, those soapbox opera elements is, I mean, it's just part of what makes X-Men great. Like, you're not just there to see, like, these super powerful people destroy super powerful things. Like, you're in the ride with the characters, and they're super strong as advertised.
Yeah. Speaking of soap opera moments, the next episode 6, was his Life Death Part 2. It starts out with, like, this, like, spaceship war, and I was like, oh, are we gonna get to see, like, Cable's future? And so that's where I thought we were, and then I realized, oh no, this is present day. This is just really far away or something like that. And so a lot of this episode, especially the stuff when we find out that Charles Xavier is alive, which I didn't know, and then I'm like, oh, he's walking. I wonder if it's the suit he's wearing, and of course it's the suit he's wearing, right? But then, like, I was just like, oh, like, this is very soap opera-y, because he's supposed to marry the, like, Empress, but it's like, oh no, you're an outsider, I can't. And obviously I'm over exaggerating, but, like, the feeling is there, and he's like, no, I will prove my commitment and prove my love. And then they put him through these trials, you know what I mean? Like, it's very, like, epic, very soap opera-y, but of course done in a good way. Mm-hmm. And for me, the climax of that episode was so cool to see Professor X pull everyone into the astral plane. I thought that was sick. I was like, dude, this is cool, man.
You get to see Jean versus Madeline in the astral plane. You get to see Xavier prove his worth, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
In there as, like, the actual professor. Honestly, like, to jump back a bit, I love that, because Professor, like, Scott clearly looks up to Charles Xavier as not only a mentor, but, like, his actual father.
Yeah.
It's incredibly clear, like, even, like, from first on out, he's saying, like, what would Charles do, like, if he were here? Like, it's clear that, like, he looks up to him as a person and as a father. But I also love how both of them are also hapless romantics. Like, they clearly cannot get a good, like, read or tone into the people that they love romantically. And I just think that it's super funny that Charles is sort of also, like, not in the same way as Scott, obviously, because he has to deal with her, with the the clone and the original. But it's also in Charles's retrospect that, like, he's willing to sacrifice his beliefs for man, I met this super cool alien and I want to marry her.
On the other side of the
On
galaxy.
the other side of the galaxy, completely away from the X-Men.
Yeah, everyone thinks I'm dead. Like, how much more dramatic could it be?
So it's funny to me that Scott has to, like, well, Scott's dealing with these shenanigans like Charles has to do in its own way too. And I love that just for they just both draw so many similarities, but I still, I just still find it funny. Because again, like, I think it also shows you, or this episode shows, I guess more of the whole, like, we don't necessarily love Charles, but we like the things that he stands for, like being tested, because it's like, what ideals are you fighting for if you're not gonna even fight on your own planet for them? We got to see a lot of the Shi'ar though, which is super cool. I love world building, and in that retrospect, I always think that the space stuff with the X-Men is so interesting because it pulls you away from the mansion. You get to see them in other lights too, because the Shi'ar are the ones who are also partly responsible for Jean dying to begin with.
Oh,
because of the Dark Phoenix saga. So you know, there are ties there with the X-Men. We'll have to see if they get trounced on later. Because like the I guess what the show is implying is that when Jean, like, she's in the space shuttle, like she's down, like buried beneath like the New York waters or whatever. That was implied, like, oh, like that's the actual Jean Grey, like someone like scooped her up, made a clone, etc. So there, that is gonna be interesting history to see, like if Jean ever like sees the Shi'ar again, like the actual Jean Grey put in there. I'd be down to see what the interactions are. But I like I like world building, and I like to see like gladiators there, deathbirds there, like all the different Shi'ar.
Ronin too. Like, I don't. So, dude, obviously, I know Ronin. Ronin is his name.
Yeah, Ronin,
yeah, he's in. Yeah, he's in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. And man, his just I like, obviously, like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, I love it. It's a good film, but I like, man, dude, his character looks cooler in the comics. Like, and I understand the wanting to kind of like, oh, like this is the real world, so it can't be as like cartoony as they are in the comics, but like I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it works. So like I feel like it can work if there's like a level of commitment to it. And like you saw this happen with like the X-Men movies, where like they are never wearing the yellow and blue, right? And you see this with like a lot of things, and I understand like some costumes would be way harder to do to make them look realistic and stuff, but like it makes me another reason why I'm excited for X-Men, or sorry, not X-Men, but Deadpool Wolverine, because Wolverine, obviously we've seen the costume that he's going to be wearing, and I'm like, oh cool, it's like, you know, it's what we expect him to look like. And I don't know, I just thought that like even Ronin seemed cool in this episode. But yeah, and then obviously like Gladiator's cool as hell. I was like, damn, dude, he's sick. Like I would love to see him on the big screen. Has he been on the big screen yet? No? Okay, cool. No, that's Hercules. That's in Love and Thunder, yes. Right? Yeah, okay, cool. I always get a lot of those characters confused. The kind of like almost like Superman-esque characters, you know, like they can fly, they have super speed, super strength, and all that stuff. But yeah, so yeah, Gladiator was cool as hell. I love the animation. You get to see how like powerful he is. He just like disappears while he's like moving because he's moving so fast. That was sick.
He is a very strong person. They got a lot of strong people in the Shi'ar Empire, and I appreciate this about Marvel Cosmic as well, and why I think they actually have the stronger counterpoint against DC's, because DC's Cosmic is just the Green Lanterns and some of the Hawk people, and that's like it. But Marvel, man, you got Asgard, you've got all the different realms, you've got the Kree Empire, you got the Shi'ar Empire, you got the Skrulls. And I love this whole entire cavalcade that like we're bringing and setting ourselves into. Like, this isn't just like a small world where like only the X-Men are here, and we're gonna confine it to that. Like I told you before the show, I was reading the Batman and Robin Adventures comics, because, you know, they were not adaptations, but like brand new comics that they made along with the TV show, like just maybe in the same vein as like the Batman animated series. I don't know if I would be mad if the studio producers of Marvel said, hey, like X-Men is doing pretty well. Why can't we make other shows to spin out from this one? Because we've got empires being built up and other different, like, that would be cool. I'd like to see a Guardians of the Galaxy show, like, tossed in there.
Yeah, that'd be a good, like, whenever you have like a cast of characters, I think like a series or whatever works really well, and I think that would work. I mean, obviously, I think is it in episode 6 or 7 when Captain America shows up in this, but yeah, like I think that there's lots of room for spin-offs, or not spin-offs, but not quote unquote spin-offs, but you know what I mean, like extensions in the same animated style, even in the same universe as X-Men 97, right? Because other characters pop up, like obviously we're talking about Gladiator and you know, these galactic empires right now, but like other characters show up, and I think that's I don't know, it's really cool, like the cameos and all that stuff. Oh man, it would be great. And like DC, because DC right now, at least the content that I'm familiar with that they produce that's good is a lot of their animated movies. And I don't know if Marvel's ever had like
They've never been
foothold.
They've never had that strong foothold that DC has in animation.
Well, there you go. That, like, it seems ripe for the
Right.
pick. You know what I mean? If you're Disney and you're trying to milk things for as much money as possible, you probably want to see what X-Men 97 did well and try to, like, you know, create stories like that for other beloved characters or teams. Maybe something like Fantastic Four, because we haven't seen good Fantastic Four content in like, I mean, ever really. So, and it's like, you know, it's like one of the most popular comic books of all time.
I know, and it's insane too. But like, you know, if you tell someone in the general public that the Fantastic Four are cool, you know, you're gonna be hard pressed to find anyone that agrees with you, because the Fantastic Four that they know are the couple of movies that haven't been necessarily great or profound. I think with the X-Men too, like, it's been a while since like we gotten anything X-Men. Maybe I don't think it's just like, you know, they're just throwing it out there and like trying to see, like, because like if people were like this starved and hungry for the X-Men, I don't think it would have gotten as much praise and admiration as it has for, well, like since the show was airing. You know, I remember being partly apprehensive that they were like going to do a remake of the original show, just because I had no idea if it was just going to be a thing for the nostalgic cash cow, or like, oh, can we, like, why can't we make a new show? But I kid you not, like after watching like the first 7 episodes and getting to see everyone like tossed in here, it's like I want more of this. It feels weird to say, but this is exactly what I was expecting out of the X-Men.
Yeah, I would 100% like keep my Disney Plus subscription or whatever if I knew that like shows like these were gonna pop out, because I mean, the new Star Wars stuff usually doesn't do it. Like, it really doesn't do it for me at all. Like, I'm not a Disney adult, you know, and the Disney, a lot of the newer MCU films also don't do anything for me. So if they could take, you know, the hundreds of millions of dollars or however much money they spent on something like the Marvels, or you know, insert generic phase 4 phase 5 movie here, and we're just like, yeah, we're gonna put this money towards you know, a new Fantastic Four animated series or something like that, like I would watch the hell out of that. And maybe it's not gonna do the same for their like stocks or whatever, you know, like, oh, our percentages aren't as high because we don't have the movie, like the theater sales, but it's just going to keep people there longer. And, you know, it's just a symptom of like, well, let's not worry about the short term and really like oversaturating the superhero market and like releasing a movie every 2 months or whatever. And let's just get these good stories, good series out of the way that are actually going to age well. Because I mean, even a lot of the CGI that are used today in some of the newer MCU films, they look bad now, man. They're gonna look awful in 10, 15, 20 years. So I don't know, man. It's just I hate seeing like so much money being put towards like bad stuff, where there's this nearly infinite world of comic book stories right now that can be easily adapted to really strong content, really good content that people will love and they'll get praise for.
No, for sure. And I think it's like that attention to detail that's sort of revitalized this whole entire line of thinking, right? Maybe if this is out of the box convention, like unconventional for Marvel, just because they haven't, like Marvel Studios has not stepped in to do many of these animated projects. So to see one like stick out and in a good way, I think only helps their cause and just gets more people to join in, for especially for a commodity that we haven't seen on screen since New Mutants. I remember when New Mutants came out, and that was not a great movie. And I remember it got like production delayed like 3 years.
I don't even remember this.
Yeah, like it was. Anya Taylor-Joy was in it.
Really?
And she.
Oh wow, it came out in 2020.
And I feel bad for her because all her character was like, I love magic, but the magic that was in that movie does not act like her, and she's also like incredibly racist towards the people of color characters in that show, in that film. You know, so like believe me when I say like I'm super stoked in for, you know, what they have going on and all that other stuff. But I don't think we can stop talking about the recaps without talking about some of the other things that happened in this series. Like we have, like I said earlier, we got Nightcrawler, my boy Kurt Wagner, one of my favorite X-Men, to jump in and give us some
literally
much needed comfort in times of strife and everything else alike. Where you knew that they were like Rogue and Nightcrawler were brother sister, right?
I didn't know that at all. What? I had no idea.
I kid you not. When I read my first X-Men comic, I had no idea like they were related. So I texted a buddy of mine like, "Wait, Rogue and Nightcrawler are like siblings?" They're like, "Yeah, did you not know that?" I was like, "Yeah, Mystique's their mom."
Oh, I didn't know that part either.
But you could connect the two because like Mystique and Nightcrawler are both blue.
Yeah, that's. I mean, so is Beast.
I know that's fair. You know what? That's fair. But yeah, I kid you not. Like I was the most like flabbergasted to know like, oh, that's why Kurt cares so much about Rogue. I get it now. I didn't know that. I wish I knew that.
Yeah, Nightcrawler's so cool, man. His
is.
powers. I mean, like I know like his. It's not just like his ability to like blink, but it's also like the sort of like kind of like cloud that he leaves behind. I don't know. It just seems like because anyone could be like, oh yeah, this character's superpower, he blinks around, like he literally just blink, like not long distance teleporting but short distance teleporting. Maybe he could do long distance, I have no idea, but like then just being like, oh yeah, he blinks, and then also there's this like black cloud shadow thing from when he does blink, and also he looks kind of like a mix of a human animal hybrid thing. He's got a tail and all that stuff. I'm like, dude, like his character design is really cool. Like he's not super ultra giga powerful, but he's like real. Like you want to see more Nightcrawler.
No, 100%. His teleportations, it's one of the best SFXs or special whatever you call it, the special lettering in comics, like where it's like a sound is like a crackle or something, like those onomatopoeias. This is called a BAMF.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty cool, isn't it? Like it's like he's got his like own thing that's separate from the X-Men. It's like BAMF, 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 and like he puffs up, he's gone. It's like
that is cool.
That is cool. Yeah, man. He's the best swashbuckling blue person in comics. I don't think that's a controversial statement because I just love his character, and I love him appearing and helping out with the team because he wasn't in the animated or the original animated show as much. So getting to see him here and helping Rogue figure out everything, honestly, it's been nice to see. Especially, I feel bad for Rogue though, just because, like, man,
dude,
I I wouldn't be one to. It's like her thing is right. Like whatever she touches, she gets the powers of, or the memories of, or whatever it might be. I mean, she can't touch, like literally touch anyone, or else they could possibly die. And to see her lose two people that she definitely cared for, I find the Magneto thing funny too, because like it's typically not the relationship most people are expecting with the X-Men, but those two definitely had like a thing in the partly early on. Like, it's been weird going on. Like they never tied the knot out. Like she and Remy get married in 2017. Like it's a whole thing. Like the whole thing is like, oh, it's a fake out. Like Kitty Pryde isn't getting married, but Rogue is. Yeah, I feel bad for her. Like I legitimately, like if I were Rogue, I would not be where I don't, just to see her function honestly. Is pretty enlightening to see.
Yeah, she's clearly a tragic character, you know, like if you go back to like Greek tragedy plays, like, oh, like all this bad stuff happens to her. You know what I mean? Like she lives a life where she can't even like touch the people she loves, you know? She has to always wear gloves and just, I don't even know, like, can she kiss people? Like, probably not, right? She can't touch any, like, it's any skin to skin contact, basically. Yeah, so, I mean, pretty awful way to live, you know? It must feel like, almost like maybe like a leper or something, you know? Like, how lepers felt, I imagine, over 1,000 years ago or whatever. But yeah, like, and so it's really cool when you get to see this, you know, her interacting with Magneto because of his power. He can put a like electromagnetic force field that's small enough between the atoms of their skin that it still feels like they're touching. I assume that's how the way it works, you know, I assume that's what's happening. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And of course, Rogue would be drawn to him. And he seems to be, I mean, you know, I don't know much about the comics, but he seems to like really care for her and all this stuff. So, you know, you kind of understand why Rogue would be like, oh, I'm going to, you know, just even if it's maybe it's a fling or whatever with Magneto, but I can totally understand it because it's like the only way she'll be able to experience another human being in that way is with Magneto. So like, I don't like blame her or like think she's a bad person for that at all. Cause like, I couldn't imagine living like her. And then of course, like I do feel bad for Gambit because obviously they have a thing. But then like, you know, we know about Rogue's tragic life and her lifestyle and how she can't touch anyone. And, you know, she's kind of alienated because of it. Also being a mutant, right? Like she's alienated amongst people who are alienated all the time. And that sucks. But then to see Magneto and Gambit kind of disappear from her life in a single episode, and for her the span of like 5-10 minutes or whatever, it just adds on to her being a like literal tragic character where it feels like nothing good can happen for her.
And that's the saddest part too, where you are the you already feel excommunicated from the whole world, right? Because you literally cannot go back to your regular lifestyle. And Charles Xavier's like, hey, like, you know, I'm assembling a team of like, a bunch of young people. Kind of suspect if you ask me, but you know, if you want to help protect the world, like, help me do it. She signs up. She makes new friends and falls in love with people, and then you know the people you fall in love with end up being kaput. And like, yeah, spoilers. Yeah, again, Magneto's fine, but yeah, I feel bad for all the people that are big Gambit fans, because I know that, like you and one of my other friends, like he's a super big Remy LeBeau fan. That's his real name.
Yeah,
you know, and I feel, yeah, I don't know, it stinks for her also. Like, I cannot imagine like what's going on through her head, honestly. Like, to say all of the things that she said to Captain America about, okay, like if you guys are actually like for coexistence, right? Especially like, you know, you live in the United States where we're still talking about it to this day. Like, to not only have that tough conversation with Captain America, but also like in your mind knowing that you're still suffering from not being able to coincide with yourself. Like I thought that was actually like subtly powerful. Um,
Yeah.
a nice added touch on there.
Yeah. Did you want to move on to episode 6? Or maybe it's episode 7. I mean, no, like
Ep-
after the Genosha
yeah,
episode is what
episode,
I'm
yeah,
talking.
episode, yeah.
Yeah. Like these two episodes, I thought 6 and 7 were to me like, man, it's just like it kept getting better, you know? Like, and these two episodes where I'm like, oh man, like episodes 1 and 2, like they're good, and then 3 was good. And then, like there's all this good stuff, but man, like especially obviously I don't know where it goes from 8 to 9 or 8 to 10 because I haven't seen those ones yet. But like I thought it was really cool seeing, I kind of already touched upon the Charles Xavier and the galactic thing and stuff like that, but um when you're talking about like Rogue searching, kind of trying to find answers, right? Because two people she loved just died, and then Captain America shows up, and they're talking about these whole like tolerance thing, and I thought that was really good and powerful, like for regular people, not in a Marvel world to like hear and see. I also thought it was interesting when Scott is talking to, I think it's the president. It's someone like very high up, very powerful. Yeah, it is the president because Scott's saying something like, like we need you now more than ever. Like we need people to help look for like body. Oh yeah, that's what it is. It's like they're trying to like search for survivors on Genosha, and like the UN or the United States or whatever are kind of pulling out because they don't want to be like associated with mutants. But like Scott's just like, look, like we need you, like we can't do it alone, and you want to like show us that you're our ally, like be our ally right now when we need you more than ever before. And the president's just like, or whoever it is, I forget what politician they are, they're just like, look, like I want to help you, I do, but I can't right now because it's bad optics, which is kind of ironic to say to Scott.
Actually,
Like,
what I just realized? It's former Senator Robert Kelly, now president,
oh,
who is one of the biggest mutant bigots in Marvel Comics history.
I did not know that. Okay, that makes way more sense. But him, or Robert Kelly, is just like, he says something along the lines of, "Look, I'm trying to win this election because if I don't win, the guy who does win is not as like nice to mutants as I am." And it kind of sucks to hear that, but that is a lot of like how like modern politics works. It's like, oh, like this person doesn't represent exactly what I want, but like unfortunately the other guy or the other person is the exact opposite of what I want.
It's crazy that the United States of America, both regular and fictional, still haven't learned the lessons from the 1828 election with John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson, where those two literally were just throwing as many terrible things as like, oh, like Andrew Jackson's a drunkard. John Quincy Adams, once when he was a politician or ambassador to Britain, pimped 2 British women while he was there. And every
Man,
single...
like...
Every single election after that has had some shades of, instead of talking about what's actually like good for our platforms, let's talk about how that the other person on the other side is not as good as we are.
Yeah, the mudslinging. It's there's a textbook word for it, mudslinging. And I remember learning about that in like, I don't know, 8th grade government class or whatever the hell it was. But yeah, it's just like, that's like, I don't know. People focus on like the bad so much, even if the bad's not that bad, or when the bad is really bad, like for some reason it might get glossed over, And so I don't know. It's incredibly frustrating as someone who does follow politics like very, very closely. But also that's one of the reasons why I appreciated this episode is because it is awful that the most like the wealthiest and most powerful people in the planet can't help people suffering, people who just were victim of a horrible, tragic event. Because that happens all the time these days, we don't have to talk about wars. We could talk about like, so-and-so country being rocked by a hurricane or, tragic earthquakes or whatever that, thousands of people are dead or missing. And we have all the money and technology and capability in the world, but instead of helping them, we're like, we got to worry about this other thing, or this other thing is going to help us get elected more, or something like that. And so, which is not how it should be. I mean, just personally, like if we have the capability to help, we should. And that episode in X-Men kind of highlights something from the real world really well.
No, it does. And it's moments like that where it's the subtleties of, once you actually think about it and what these writers and producers are trying to say in the episode, you go like, that's what they're trying to say in with these with whatever the theme is of the episode, or just the X-Men as a whole in general, and getting to see how different people react to different situations each and every single day. And it's produced like some of like the worst inhumanity and mutantdom like has to offer. Like we get, like we can talk about like episode 7 now, and talk about the reveal at the end where we see Mr. Sinister again, and he's working with someone who doesn't look as great, right? They're talking about I guess we could talk about the whole Bolivar Trask, because scene, right, where they're led to a point where they're like, okay, like it's obviously like being helped or molded by this guy, gotta get him down. The X-Men are like sort of like at their weird like last stand against him. Logan's like, man, we gotta save him from himself, and that's when Rogue tries to toss him over. And cool fight scene though, I will say. Even if it didn't, ended in weird ways. But yeah, you want to talk about like having the hard moments. I mean, that's one right there. Like you're talking about one of the people who hates the idea of coexistence between both factions, and sort of like that exemplified, and it kills you in the heart to know like, man, like this feels like someone could actually like think this, and not in a great way.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I like, so building on that, I think it's also interesting how, while Trask is an awful, horrible person, and like in all definitions of the word, like a bigot, right? Just hates mutants for the sake of them. And it sounds like he's the one who like invented Sentinels or something. Like he invented a thing just specifically to kill mutants, which again is awful. But I think it's also important that like, it seems like he is puppeted kind of by other people too, for whatever reason, right? For their benefit. And I think that's a really interesting kind of angle to take, because yes, he is full of hatred, he is bad, but other people more powerful than him, obviously, either politically or because they have superpowers or money or whatever, are using his hatred to motivate him to like not just be a hateful person, but put those hateful things into action. And I think, again, very sort of mirroring the real world, because there are so many hateful people in the world. And it'd be great if those hateful people just sat on their couch and never came outside. But then, when people are able to motivate those hateful people to go do, act on their hatred, like that's when we get like really bad things, like, the Sentinels genociding a bunch of mutants. And so I thought that was cool. And look, like I'm not gonna lie, I agree with Rogue here. I think he should die. Like I was just like, yeah, like he's an awful person, I'm not judge, jury, and executioner. I'm not a mutant. I would never kill anyone unless it was, in self-defense or whatever. But like I would not blame her one bit for if that was his death right there, I wouldn't have blamed her.
I wouldn't have either. And even then, like, you can see, like, Wolverine on the team, like, yeah, it's about time. Or some other people, like, who are completely conflicted, too. Like, I appreciate, like, Scott being the Boy Scout, being like, yeah, we can't go into, like, this hell, right? It's, like, this whole same thing. I hate tying this back to Batman. That's why Batman doesn't kill people, right? Because he knows that the first person that he kills, it adds not only one more murderer to the world, but it completely defeats the purpose of his entire operations and motivation as a character. But I like that specifically, again, like this goes back to all of the voices being like in different tunes and being distinct from one another, is that you're going to have dissenting opinions on a team that has a whole bunch of people with completely dissenting opinions. So like having the whole team like react there, I thought was like, it was like it was gold for me. I'm like, I want more scenes like this where they're actually forced to make hard decisions in hard times.
Yeah, and that's like, I teach group communication, and that's one of the things that we talk about, not obviously not killing people or whatever, but decision making, and how when a group comes together, there is a goal that they are trying to accomplish, right? And that's the goal of the X-Men is to fight for coexistence, or to, build a world where mutants and human beings can coexist, right? And that's a really like noble goal, and of course, like I agree, like that's how it should be. But then like, some people are pushed to their limits, and not that this happens in most groups, but like when Rogue is pushed to her limits, it makes sense that she would make a decision that is probably not in line with the group's goals because of the stuff that she's experiencing. And then it also makes sense that in the group there are other individual opinions that like, and it makes sense for Wolverine to be like, God, it's about time, because Wolverine's been alive for what, hundreds of years,
and has also killed a lot of people.
Exactly, and he's seen a lot of people die, so he's probably like, yeah, I could not care less about him dying. It probably comforts him. But then obviously Scott, who's much younger and like you said, the Boy Scout, it makes sense that he'd be like, is this who we are now? Or whatever he says after Rogue tosses him off. I forget what he says, but I liked it. I think it's a really cool moment of like, we get to see everyone kind of react to it.
I love those group reactions. Again, it just shows you like how different and unique the whole world is when you nail like the nitty-gritty down, and just to see like who you really are as a person. Because I mean that is how you build character. It is through the oddly weird and tough times of you as a human being going through that. And I don't know where this has been all my life, and that's all pretty much what we've experienced in every single episode. Like even the Mojo episode still had the whole entire thing with Storm and Forge being built up. And so to see each of these characters, to see like how they're like, how they'd approach things or what they're going through, and then obviously like the whole ensuing fight at the end, see like who can beat Bolivar, and it actually has to be Nathan to step in, which is super cool. I love that scene where he's just flying in, like, I'm gonna save my old man today. And it's stuff like that where I really appreciate that they went the extra mile to further characterize and flesh out the X-Men. Can't say any good things about it, but yeah, I mean we're we're near the end of the finale, and we're introduced to a completely brand new character. And honestly, I probably should have seen this from the beginning, because they are adapting the Operation Zero Tolerance story arc from the late 90s X-Force, which just makes sense to me, considering we've had the Sentinel build up from episode 1, we've had Trask in there, a lot of these other characters, and I'm actually kicking myself that I didn't see it until like midway through episode 5. I'm like, oh, okay, that's where we're going. So I hate for being a fake X-Men fan, but it is what it is. But yeah, I am actually really excited that we get to see Bastion and exactly what he has planned up his sleeve. What did you think there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the character at all. But I was like, I'm excited to see where it goes, because Sinister kind of pops up too, but it's clear that Sinister is working for Bastion. And I said last episode, like last week, that like I think Sinister's design is really cool, like his power, the way he looks, the way he sounds. And so more screen time of him, I'm like, hell yeah. And then like to find out that there's like a bigger bad, it's kind of like the whole like Star Wars, when Darth Vader is like, he's the bad guy, but then you see all of a sudden, wait, he's working for someone else. You know what I mean? Like it's like, for me, that was like a cool moment. And I didn't peek ahead, but like I looked at the episode list, and it looks like episodes 8 through 10 are like a 3-parter. And so I am super hyped watch these over the weekend and then talk about it, because I want to see exactly what happens, because Bastion sounds crazy powerful. He sounds kind of cool compared to like the things that he can do and stuff like that. And something that we kind of didn't talk about today, but obviously like we don't have to talk about for a long time, is that at the end of episode 6, Storm does get her powers back, and I just can't wait to see Storm be reunited with the X-Men, which I assume happens. Obviously, I'm making assumptions here, but I think that like all of episodes 1 through 7 are kind of, I can see them coming to, and obviously like with the hint that Professor X is coming back, Professor Charles Xavier is coming back, I can see like it all coming together, and I'm excited to see like the finale, like I'm excited to see it crescendo into one wonderful 3-part episode.
It's going to be awesome, because literally the last 3 episodes are called Operation Zero Tolerance. So I am consider me strapped in, and I didn't even see that those episodes were called that. So I literally made the whole 3-4-3 thing, but it all actually worked out perfectly considering the story's pacing and everything else. So yeah, you know what? I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that. I didn't even mean to do that intentionally, but I guess
it's all you, man.
That's all good, you. I did. But that's going to do it, I think, for this like super long review. I had a lot of fun watching these episodes and reminding myself, like, you know what? I'm never going to stop watching cartoons, man. I saw a tweet a couple of weeks ago asking people, like, hey, how old are you when you stop watching cartoons? The biggest, like, I guess, reply, someone quote tweeted it and said, I never stopped, and it had like 250,000 likes or something compared to the post's like original 10,000. Like, there's something magical about this. There's something awesome about the X-Men that I just keep coming back to. It's like my autism is geared towards it. I remember texting a friend, I was like, my autism is geared back on the X-Men, and he was like, Dom, it never left. What are you talking about? So I'm super excited for what will hopefully be the most epic last ride until whenever the new season drops.
Dude, I can't wait. I'm glad I'm getting to like binge it now, because I know when the second season drops, like it's gonna be, man, waiting a week for each episode is gonna be it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be painful, tough, all that stuff. But yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for next episode to talk about these last 3 episodes.
I can't wait either. And until then, next time, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button. I'm almost at 300 subscribers, so every single sub helps me out and helps the numbers out and all that. So I appreciate you guys, all the new people who are watching this too. I want to thank Mr. Drew for joining me once again to talk about all of the media and craze and love in the world, because I guess I can't get enough of superheroes or pop culture or anything else. So something I appreciate, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to record this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again. As always, had a lot of fun. I'm having fun kind of like watching these things. It's kind of like a book club, but with other media like movies and TV and stuff. And it's always fun having the conversation. So thanks for having me again.
Of course. And until next time, guys, you be you. Take care and have a great rest of the day wherever you are.